You know, um, you know that feeling when you wake up from like a really intense dream and for just a split second, you're not entirely sure which world is the real one.
Oh, yeah, we were just sitting there on the edge of the bed.
Right, like the coffee maker is already beeping in the kitchen, the alarm is buzzing, the day is starting. But part of you just feels strangely displaced.
Yeah, it's this profound sense of disorientation, like a subtle kind of homesickness, really, for a place you can't quite put your finger on.
Exactly. I always think of it as this quiet suspicion that the daily grind, the commute, the endless emails, the mortgage payments, that none of that is the ultimate reality.
Right. And that somewhere, beneath all the noise, we are actually meant to be completely free.
Yes. And that intuition is, well, it's one of the most ancient and universal human experiences.
Absolutely. This quiet suspicion that we are essentially walking through life, asleep to our true nature.
So let's unpack that today. Welcome to our deep dive. We have a single, incredibly profound source text to explore today.
Yeah, it's a short essay titled Entirely Essential.
Right. And our mission for this conversation is to use this text to understand why that exact feeling of spiritual homesickness and, all the daily struggles that come with it isn't some kind of cosmic punishment.
Which is how it usually feels, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
But we're going to look at why those struggles might actually be the exact preparation you need for ultimate freedom.
And the premise of Entirely Essential, it frames this perfectly right from the opening sentence. It validates that exact feeling of displacement you just described
How does it do that?
by bluntly stating, we are not happy here in this world.
Wow. Okay, I mean, that sounds quite pessimistic at first glance, like a really cynical take on the human condition.
It does, yeah. But in reality, it's setting the stage for a much larger, remarkably hopeful journey.
Right, because the essay doesn't just leave you wallowing in despair, it immediately pivots.
Exactly. It suggests we feel this underlying unhappiness because our soul is dreaming of being free, like a butterfly that's trapped but can somehow sense the sky.
I love that imagery. And it poses this vital rhetorical question like, why would we want to live in the dream of this temporary life when we can awaken to the joy of living eternally in the Tao?
And just to establish our terms here for the listener, the text uses the Tao, or the Shab, to represent our ultimate spiritual
Right,
source.
the origin point we're all supposedly trying to get back to.
Exactly. Which brings us to a rather serious reality check that the text introduces right out of the gate.
Oh, the karma aspect.
Yeah, as spiritual aspirants, as people consciously trying to navigate a journey back to that source, we really have to manage our expectations.
Because the author emphasizes the inescapable reality of karma. Right.
Yeah.
Every action we take, every choice we make.
Every single attachment we form, yeah. It all has consequence. We possess this sprawling karmic account that literally must be settled entirely before we can merge back into the Tao.
So we can't just skip out on the bill.
Nope, no running out on the check. If we've generated debt, we have to endure the physical and mental highs and lows required to balance that ledger.
Man. And the text explicitly warns us to expect a tough and arduous journey back. But it adds this fascinating caveat, too. It says, even though things may seem smooth.
That caveat is so crucial because, the surface of your life might look incredibly put together.
Right, like you have the stable job, the nice house, a calm family life.
Yeah, but the underlying invisible work of settling those karmic accounts is still heavy lifting. It's happening beneath the surface.
So to understand how to handle that tough journey, the text requires us to first acknowledge where we currently are. And it does not sugarcoat our situation at all.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
It refers to our current existence as a prison house of transmigration.
Let's break that down because, calling human life a prison house is incredibly heavy. Transmigration is the endless cycle of birth and death.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So it's this idea that we are trapped here, repeating this cycle over and over, completely bound by those karmic accounts we just mentioned.
It's a very deliberate and precise metaphor.
Yeah.
Within this worldview, we are literally serving time. And the essay uses an analogy about actual physical prison inmates to explain how we should behave while caught in this cycle.
Oh, this part is great. So think about someone serving, like, a 20-year sentence.
Right. Some prisoners use their time inside to prepare for reintegration into society.
Yeah, they further their education, they learn new trades, they strengthen their character.
They deepen their faith. They're actively getting ready for their eventual release.
Right, so they're utilizing their confinement for a higher future purpose instead of just, staring at the wall.
Exactly. But then you have other prisoners who spend their entire sentence planning their next crime.
Right. Sitting in their cells plotting what banks they're going to rob the second they get out.
And that behavior just guarantees they're going to land right back in a cell. The text calls that foolish, which honestly feels like an understatement.
It's the ultimate self-sabotage, really. The prisoner is actively generating the exact conditions that will perpetuate their own captivity. This makes me think of packing for a massive multi-day hike across difficult terrain.
Oh, I like that.
You know the trail ahead is steep. You know the weather's going to be unforgiving. So why on earth would you fill your backpack with heavy rocks instead of the survival gear you actually need?
You wouldn't. Or you shouldn't, anyway.
Right. But in a modern context, if I'm looking at my own typical Tuesday, I assume the heavy rocks are things like, my obsession with my career trajectory.
Sure.
Or stressing over a weird text message. Or doom scrolling social media for 2 hours. Things that deeply tie my emotions to this temporary world. Is that what the text is getting at?
Your modern examples map perfectly onto the text's definition. The heavy rocks are our worldly attachments. They're these everyday binding activities.
So when you obsess over a promotion or hold a bitter grudge against a neighbor...
So endlessly chase the dopamine of social status, yeah. You aren't just wasting time. In the mechanics of karma, you're generating new debts.
Yeah.
You're tying energetic knots that tether you to this realm.
So every time I engage in that kind of material obsession, I'm essentially the foolish prisoner plotting a new crime.
Exactly. You're guaranteeing your own return to the prison house because you're creating a new karmic tie that has to be resolved later.
Because the endless pursuit of temporary gains ensures we stay trapped in transmigration.
The text draws a very hard line here. Engaging in these binding activities means we're failing to use our confinement for its intended purpose.
What exactly is the survival gear? If the rocks are our worldly attachments, what's the equivalent of the map, the compass, and the rations that the wise prisoner relies on?
The survival gear is the steadfast practice of meditation.
Okay.
That is the specialized skill the wise prisoner is cultivating. The essay makes it unequivocally clear that engaging deeply in meditation is the active mechanism for securing eternal freedom.
Let's focus on that mechanism for a second, because the text doesn't present meditation as just like a relaxation technique to lower your blood pressure after a stressful meal.
No, not at all.
It presents it as the actual tool for settling the karmic ledger. How does sitting in silence actually pay off this cosmic debt?
Well, meditation, in the context of returning to the Tao, is the process of untethering.
Untethering.
Yeah, when you focus your attention inward, you are actively withdrawing your energy and your consciousness from the physical world.
So you stop pouring your life force into the creation of new attachment.
Exactly. Instead of generating new karma, you're allowing the existing debts to process and clear. You're shifting your center of gravity from the temporary world to the eternal source.
And the text warns us that if we spend our life sentence here merely doing things that bind us, instead of practicing this inner withdrawal, we are completely missing the point of our existence.
Completely.
But we have to be honest about the reality of this practice, too. The text acknowledges that this lifelong struggle, stilling a chaotic mind, enduring the clearing of old karmas, sitting down to practice day in and day out, is utterly exhausting.
Oh, it openly states there is no respite in sight. It's a relentless grind.
Right. The settling of accounts does not offer vacations. It requires this sustained lifelong vigilance that pushes against every natural impulse of the human ego.
And that naturally breeds the temptation to just quit.
Oh, absolutely. You get to a point on that steep hike where you just want to throw the backpack into a ravine, sit on a log, and announce to the universe, I'm done walking, I'm staying right here.
Yes. But the essay draws a massive, crucial distinction between two concepts that we often confuse, giving up and surrendering.
This is perhaps one of the most vital psychological shifts the text offers, isn't it?
It really is. Understanding the difference between giving up and surrendering changes the entire trajectory of the spiritual path.
See, I want to push back on the modern usage of the word surrender, though. In our hyper-driven hustle culture world, surrender is basically treated as a dirty word.
Oh, completely. It implies weakness.
Yeah, it means you lost the battle and waved the white flag. Doesn't surrendering to a master or to God or to the Tao, doesn't that just sound like a convenient, socially acceptable excuse to stop trying when the path gets too hard?
Like a cop-out.
Exactly. Like, oh, I surrender, you take the wheel, while I just take a nap in the passenger seat.
It is remarkably easy to jump to that conclusion because of how the ego perceives control. The ego views any loss of control as a defeat, but the text completely dismantles that lazy interpretation.
How so?
Well, let's look at the specific definitions provided in the essay. Giving up implies admitting defeat. It's exactly what you described, dropping the backpack and refusing to take another step.
Right. It's the total cessation of effort out of despair. Just saying, I can't do this, so I quit.
Surrendering, however, is an entirely different, highly active mechanism. According to the text, true surrender requires you to go to the absolute edge of your effort.
The edge of your effort.
Yes. You don't get to surrender at the trailhead while your boots are still clean and your water bottle is full. You have to hike until your muscles are burning, until your lungs are screaming.
Until you literally cannot take another step under your own human power.
Exactly. Only then, at the absolute limit of your individual capacity, do you genuinely acknowledge to the Tao, I have done all I can, now it is over to you.
Wow. So surrender isn't the absence of effort at all. It's the culmination of it.
It really is. You have to actually run out of your own runway first.
You have to exhaust your ego's reliance on its own strength to realize your strength was never going to be enough to save you anyway.
And it requires intense, sustained work to reach that point of exhaustion. But the text brings in a deeply comforting core belief to support this brutal process.
Which is?
It references the old saying that God does not give us what we can handle, but rather helps us handle what we are given.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Think about the listener right now, driving to work or doing the dishes. They might feel like they are already at the absolute edge of their effort, just trying to survive the week.
Yeah, dealing with a sick parent, a toxic workplace, financial stress.
Exactly. How does this text tell them to differentiate between ordinary worldly burnout and this profound spiritual surrender?
Well, worldly burnout is often the ego exhausting itself, trying to control outcomes that are fundamentally uncontrollable. It's the fatigue of trying to force the material world to bend to our desires.
I see. And spiritual surrender?
Spiritual surrender is the exhaustion of the ego itself. It is the profound relief of realizing you do not have to be the architect of your own salvation.
But it means the load isn't going to be miraculously lightened just because you complain or because it feels heavy.
Right. But if you remain steadfast, if you maintain your sincere effort in your spiritual practice, you receive the unseen support required to carry that exact weight.
The effort itself, pushing right up to that edge, is what creates the capacity for the soul's progress. But if true progress requires us to exhaust ourselves to the point of breaking, we have to look at the design of the system itself. Like, why design a universe where we have to be pushed to our absolute limit just to make a tiny bit of spiritual progress?
It's a fair question. The fundamental why of suffering on the spiritual path is the oldest question in philosophy. Why couldn't the Tao simply welcome us back without the grueling obstacle course?
And the essay answers this with a story. It's a classic metaphor, but the way the author uses it is incredibly vivid and, honestly, a little heartbreaking.
The story of the woman and the butterfly. It's the perfect illustration of the absolute necessity of our struggles.
So the story goes like this. A woman is out walking, and she spots a butterfly cocoon. She stops and watches as the butterfly inside starts trying to force its body out through this tiny, incredibly restrictive hole at the top.
And it is agonizing to watch.
Yeah. The butterfly is struggling, squeezing, fighting against this tight opening for what seems like hours. And eventually, it just stops. It seems totally exhausted, as if it has gone as far as it can and cannot push a single millimeter further.
The butterfly has reached the absolute edge of its effort.
Right. So the woman, being well-intentioned and kind-hearted, decides to intervene. She thinks, I'll make this easier. I will remove the obstacle.
Which is what we all want, right?
Exactly. She goes and gets a pair of scissors, and she carefully snips the cocoon open to widen the hole so the butterfly doesn't have to suffer anymore.
And the butterfly slips out easily.
Right. She's thrilled, standing there waiting expectantly for it to stretch its beautiful wings and fly away into the sky.
The intervention, however well-intentioned, is a total disaster, though.
It's a tragedy. The butterfly emerges, but its body is completely swollen, and its wings are these tiny, shriveled, useless little things, and they never expand. They never open up to support the heavy body. The butterfly spends the rest of its short life just crawling around in the dirt, dragging its wings. It is never able to fly.
The woman bypassed the struggle, and in doing so, bypassed the transformation.
It reminds me of resistance training. If I go to the gym because I want to build physical strength, I can't hire someone else to lift the heavy weights for me and expect my own muscles to grow.
No, the resistance is the entire point of the exercise.
Right. If you remove the resistance, you completely eliminate the possibility of growth.
And the text explains the actual biological truth behind the butterfly story, which is what makes the metaphor so potent.
What's the biology behind it?
The intense struggle of squeezing through that tiny restrictive opening of the cocoon isn't just some arbitrary hurdle the universe threw at the insect to torture it.
Right.
It is nature's highly specific, brilliantly designed mechanism for forcing fluid from the butterfly's swollen body out into the complex vein structures of its wings.
Oh, wow. So the struggle literally pumps up the wings.
Yes. The pressure is the mechanism of flight. Without the intense, agonizing pressure of squeezing through that tight cocoon, the fluid never reaches the wings. Flight remains biologically impossible.
That is profound. So the woman's hasty gesture doomed the butterfly, precisely because she didn't understand the inner workings of the process.
Exactly. She saw pain and wanted to eliminate it immediately without realizing the pain had an essential mechanical purpose.
She looked at the struggle and identified it as the enemy. She didn't realize the struggle was the necessary preparation.
And the author draws a direct line from this biological reality to our understanding of the Master's grace. We frequently misunderstand grace.
We really do. We think of it as a magic wand that makes all our worldly problems disappear. We pray for the obstacle to be removed.
We hit a wall in our career or a crisis in our family and we say, please take this hardship away from me.
Yeah, we desperately want someone to come along with a pair of cosmic scissors and snip our cocoon so we can just slide out easily.
But the text argues something profound in response to that desire. It states, plainly, a life free of obstacles is in fact crippling.
Crippling, wow.
Yeah. Grace is not the removal of the cocoon. Grace is the unseen support that provides us with the endurance to survive the squeezing process.
So the essay assures us that the duration and the intensity of our specific struggles, the exact contours of the cocoon we find ourselves in, are perfectly calibrated.
Perfectly calibrated to strengthen our spiritual wings for our eventual return journey to the Tao.
And we have to trust that calibration, even when we are completely blind to how it's helping us.
Especially when we are blind to it. Just like the woman couldn't see the microscopic fluid transferring from the insect's body to its wings, we cannot see the inner workings of what our karmic struggles are actually accomplishing for our soul.
We just feel the squeeze.
Right. We just feel the exhaustion, the frustration, the pain of the restriction. But the text is absolute on this point. During these challenging times, we must appreciate that the struggle is, as the title of the essay declares, entirely essential.
So what does this all mean for us, right here, right now, as we navigate our own daily grinds? Let's synthesize this.
Good idea.
We started by exploring that morning feeling of displacement, the homesickness, the suspicion that life in this physical world often feels like an exhausting prison sentence of highs and lows.
And the text completely validates that intuition. We are currently caught in a cycle of transmigration, slowly paying off our accumulated karmic debts, trying to navigate our way back to our source in the Tao.
But we have agency in how we serve that time. We can choose to be the foolish prisoner. We can stay distracted by our worldly attachments, obsessing over our status and our grievances.
Stuffing those heavy rocks into our backpack.
Exactly. Generating more karma that guarantees we stay trapped in the cycle. Or we can choose to be the wise prisoner.
We can use our time to practice our meditation, to build our survival gear, and deliberately prepare for our ultimate release.
And when that preparation becomes grueling, when the sheer weight of the karmic settling becomes too much, and we hit the absolute limit of our physical and mental endurance, we don't drop the bag and give up.
No, we push to the very edge of our effort, and then we surrender. We hand the process over, trusting that the unseen grace is supporting us from the inside out.
Because every single obstacle we face is doing something vital and invisible. So, to you, listening right now, the next time you feel completely drained by a physical or mental low, when you feel like you are trapped in a cocoon of your own making and the pressure of your daily life is just unbearable, hold on to the perspective of this text.
You aren't being punished. You aren't being tortured by a random, indifferent universe.
You are being purposefully pushed.
Yeah.
The pressure of your specific circumstance is exactly what is required to develop the strength for your eventual freedom.
The pressure is forcing the fluid into your wings, which leaves us with a fascinating question to consider as you go about the rest of your day.
The text tells us that every single obstacle is perfectly designed for this transformative purpose. So look closely at your own life. Look at the single biggest, most frustrating, most restrictive obstacle you are facing right now.
The exact thing you wish someone would just come along with a pair of scissors and magically cut away.
Assume for a moment that this specific obstacle is entirely essential. What specific kind of flight do you think it is secretly preparing you for?
Because you can't truly fly until you've pushed through the dark, endured the squeeze, and realized you aren't in a prison at all, but a chrysalis.